Good morning. In this video we're going to explore part chopping in ZebraCut. This is a great way to save time in preparing your geometry ready for cutting. So here I have Rhino 8 and ZebraCut 5, and I have several parts that I've drawn: circle, rectangle and a freeform shape. And as you can see, these parts are much larger than my machine being this orange box here. So these parts I can't create from using the machine. I'm going to have to make these parts out of strips of material, and then I can cut them from my roll of material. So I need to break these parts down into smaller pieces, which I can then cut on my machine. So we're going to do that using ZebraCut's preparation system. So if you go on the menu, you can go to Prepare, and then I'm going to create a new preparation pipeline. And I'm going to add a few different tools to this steps of this preparation pipeline. Firstly, I'm going to go to Labels, and I'm going to add a Number Parts step. And secondly, we're going to use a Part Chopping step, which is under Geometry Transform, and then Part Chopping. I'm going to add that. Those are the two steps we're going to use. So firstly, we want to number our parts. So if I just drop down the options here, I've got lots of different ways of numbering parts, from the origin, from the largest part first, from the smallest part first, whatever you prefer. So I'm just going to do a prefix here. I'm going to call it part, and I'll put a space there just for fun. Okay, so that's how I'm going to number the parts. I'm going to make sure I'm in all geometry, and then I'm going to press apply to number my parts. And you'll see we've got a labels layer appeared, and we've now got 3 labels. Let's label them from the origin, so from down here up towards this direction. Now I can click any of those labels and I can give them a different name. So this might be part ZA3, or whatever you wish. You can give these parts the names, or you could say this is Alan's part, Alan's order, for example. Okay, once I've got labels on my parts, that will help us to keep the pieces of each part together when we now go on to part chopping. Now, part chopping might look more complex. There's a lot of different options on here. They're all kind of self-explanatory. If you click on any of the options and you look at the bottom, it will tell you what that actually does and how that works. So we're going to chop on the y-axis, that is into strips in this direction. You can obviously change that by doing it on the x-axis if you prefer. I'm going to chop to a specific size because that's the size of my material, and my material is going to be 1200 millimeters. Okay. I'm going to chop evenly, but you can chop from the origin or towards the origin, and that will leave you with a thin strip if you wish. It just depends how you want to lay out your parts. And I'm going to make sure that they label them, and I'm going to label them, let's say, yeah, numeric with a total, just for fun. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to run this on one part at a time, just so we can see what's going on. So I'll select the part and the label, and I'm going to press apply. And you'll see it's now chopped up Alan's part into 13 pieces, and they all have labels with them. You can also run that on the rectangle. And this one I think we'll chop up in the x-axis, and we'll just change the labeling to be x positive as well, just for variety. So we can go ahead and run that. You see it's chopped it up into vertical slices. That may or may not be more efficient for your nesting. It will vary. And then finally we'll just chop up this one on the y-axis, because I think that'll be quite interesting to see. And this time we're going to do it with alphabet, and alphabet with total, just for fun. So we'll go ahead and label it and chop up this part. And you'll see I now have this part chopped into lots of pieces. Apparently there are O parts, so A, B, C, D, E, and and so forth. So it's labeling, in this case, in Y positive. You might want to do it from origin. It just depends exactly what works out for your parts. But that should be fairly easy to reassemble. It's worth just saying that at present we don't have any ability to add seam lines. That is a feature that's on our development list. So you know, a 1-inch seam or something could be added to that. That is something we would like to add to our software. If it's a feature that you require, please do get in touch, and we can talk about adding it to the software. So there's my parts all chopped up and ready for cutting. Obviously, I can't cut them in that layout because they're not laid out appropriately for my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and use Magpie tree, and I'm going to ask it to import all geometry into the nesting tree. So that's labelled and inserts all of those parts. They're all labelled here. So, for example, if I found that I was cutting several of Alan's circle here, and for some reason, I broke or dropped part 13, or it needed another one, I could just go into here and add an extra one, or otherwise just increase the quantity as required. Or if I find I've already got a part 12 that I can reuse, I can just drop that down, and then I don't need to waste material cutting an extra one. Got full control on there, and we'll just put that all back to 1. So there's my parts, all ready for nesting. And I need a sheet to nest them into, so I'm going to use a roll, and I'm going to set my roll to be, let's say 1250 wide and 100 meters long. And I don't know how many rolls I'm going to need. I'm going to give myself 10 rolls just in case. So once I've done that, I'm going to go to Magpie, and I'm going to choose to look at my nest settings. So I'm going to create some new settings, and I'm going to nest every 180 with a 10mm gap. I am not going to allow flipping, and I'm going to use a 10mm sheet border. And we'll just run rapidly. You could run for a bit longer if you wish. Just to improve our nesting speed, because these are very large parts, I'm going to increase our tolerances to quite large numbers there. That will nest them a little bit quicker. Just an extra tip there. So once that's all done, I'm going to say make my nest, and it will go ahead and make them. Now in this case I have made a mistake, because the parts in red there have not nested. That is because if you rotate them by 180, they clearly won't fit into a sheet of a roll that is in this material. They won't fit into a roll of material in that way. If I put that to 180 to every 90 degrees, then I think they will fit in quite nicely. And we should get all the parts nesting there. So we'll let that choose a little bit of time to nest, and nest will become more efficient over time. But if we just want a nest for this demonstration, so that'll do. And you'll see we've now got all of our parts nested. We've got quite large gaps in here, which is what we asked for, 10mm gaps. And you'll see it's rotated those parts to be every 90. And all of our parts have fitted in and been nested really nicely. There's a really nicely efficient nests in there ready for cutting. So just to complete the cycle then, I've got all of these ready for cutting, and indeed over a couple of different sheets. So I could now take all of my parts. I'm just going to clear layers, and I can take my parts that are here that were chopped up, hold down shift, select all of them. I'm just going to put those up above the machine area, and then I can select my first roll worth of material, which I think is all the way to there. And then I can move that into my cutting window. If I had a machine connected, I could use set 0 to do that. If I was connected, I could use set 0 to position my sheet onto my parts onto my sheet. I now just need to assign some tools. So I'm going to use laser cutting. I don't want to cut the sheet. And then I would use inkjet marking for the labels. You may need to use a step in here to create your labels into actual text which you can cut, and you would do that using the labeling tools for putting labels into text. So you could use label to text. There's lots of options on here, what font to use, what font scale to use, and where you're aiming to create your labels. I think we can just run that on selection and say go. And you'll see we've now got this is actual text, which could be now pen marked. So that's correct. That's what we want. And then I just need to find a pen to use. So I go to Tools, turn on Pen. There is Pen tool. I can press it onto the layer. Set my cut speed, my cut heights. Let's make the speed of this to be 500. And now once I've done that, I can go ahead and again, I'm just holding down Shift to do the selection. And I just want to select all of the parts in this roll of material. Oh, don't forget that one. There we go. This is obviously a very long roll of material, 100 meters long. And once we've got the tools assigned to the layers, we can then go on to the Cut tab. I'm in selection mode, otherwise it will try and cut all of the parts originally up here. We really want to cut the nested ones. And then I'm just going to do a preview of this, which will go ahead and give us some very nice previews of our G-code. Obviously there's a lot of different frames. The machine's going to have to frame through a lot of different chunks of material. Indeed, to get 100 meters on this very small machine I've got set up here, I'm going to have to do well over 100 frames. But obviously on a larger conveyorized machine, you would have very many fewer frames, but it's no problem at all to the software. It's just gone through ahead and done over 200 frames for 100 meters worth of material. And that's because my machine is actually very small. So my machine is currently set up to be just 2 meters long. And if you had a 6 meter machine, we would get a very much different number of frames. In fact, I think I can just do that now, yeah. So if I preview that this time, you'll see I get a very much smaller number of frames, and they make a lot more sense for the size job that we're working with. Obviously, we make machines in all different sizes, so we could easily do, a larger conveyorized machine for this kind of work. But there we go. We have used part chopping to take our original parts and create many labelled pieces, even of freeform shapes. We've then taken those into Magpie Tree. You can see all of our options here. They're all labelled, and we can increase the numbers we want of any particular part if we wish. We've then nested those, and we nested it into a roll. Our roll here was 1250 high under node settings. And once we did that, we then assigned some tools under the Configure tab, and then we were able to go ahead and preview it. So that's a good workflow for large parts on a conveyorized machine and how to cut them from a roll of material. Thank you very much indeed.